Hello, welcome everybody to our why media organizations or media entertainment organizations are making the journey to Google Cloud. My name is Tony Safoian. I'm the CEO of SADA Systems. We're a premier partner and have been helping organizations make the journey to Google Cloud since 2006, 2007. So I've been doing this for a really long time. The good news is I don't have a lot of slides. I just have this one, which brings me to our amazing panel, all customers of ours, some of whom we've known for many, many years. And I can't do them justice, so I'll let them introduce themselves. So Bob?
Bob McFarlin. I'm the Senior Director of Infrastructure for McClatchy. We own 30 markets across the United States, digital and print organizations. Some of the titles you may know: Miami Herald, Sacramento Bee, Kansas City Star, Fort Worth Star Telegram.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Craig Holland, SVP at Condé Nast for infrastructure and technology. We've got titles like Vogue, Wired, Ars Technica, Reddit, Traveler, The New Yorker. There's a whole bunch. So hopefully you've read some of them.
And I'm Bob Kinney. I'm the Vice President of Technology for Media News, and we're based out of Denver. But around here, the San Jose Mercury News is one of our titles. East Bay Times, Denver Post, obviously, Boston Herald. We're in 70 different markets across the country and have about 700 websites.
Awesome. So chances are you guys have read something from one of these publications multiple times today. So, as we saw the different sort of phases over the last decade of different industries and waves making the transition to G Suite first and foremost and other aspects of Google Cloud, there was sort of a period, and it still continues, that like the print publication industry, as it was formerly kind of defined as, was doing this in sort of rapid succession, right? You guys all own just so many properties. You were all in this midst of transformation where the traditional paradigm was being challenged, and going G Suite was sort of part of the response to the change in the market. And what I'd like to hear from you guys is, how has digital transformation impacted the industry, and how has the cloud journey with G Suite been a part of the strategy in response?
Yeah, sure, and I'll start off. G Suite for us has been what I would call a foundational technology. The way we got started, our kind of the origin story is we had a new CEO come in 2011, and digital. And it was funny because he wanted to send an email to all of our employees across the company, and he found that he couldn't do it because we had 11 different Exchange servers, and some people were third-party emails and everything, and we actually had to use an external email marketing company to get an email out to every single one of our employees introducing our new CEO. So we had an immediate problem to fix, and from there we went into looking into what we could do about it. Google and G Suite and everything really popped to the top, and that's how we got there.
Yeah, I think for us it was tied mostly to one of our other topics, the digital transformation. It's no surprise that the sort of print business is declining a little bit in the world, and we've been working really hard for the last 5 years to start building up our business on the digital side of the house and to draw in the kind of people, developers, engineers, creatives, editors, that kind of stuff, that the kind of people that would help us sort of get over the hump from print to digital. And so when our new CTO came in, he immediately wanted us to make the change over to G Suite, which is great because I didn't have to fight for it, which was wonderful. And so that's kind of how we got onto it, and it's been great, right? We just got a new CEO actually. Robert Lynch from Pandora, so he's going to come on, which is neat to have an actual technical CEO in our space, which is sort of in my opinion the nail in the coffin for going into the digital transformation world, right? So it's been a huge help for us. It's helped build out our culture. We went from O365. We were an Exchange shop before that. We went through the whole rigmarole, and at this point it's been a few years now, and it's been Google's been a great support, and I'm glad we did it.
So McClatchy was one of our first
Yes, so.
in this space.
In this space. So back in 2010, we had over 35 different business units across the U.S., and that was roughly 200 plus systems supporting these individual operations. So each of our markets or business units operated independent business units. So their a wholly owned technology stack was local. So that combined with several outdated mail servers, a variety of different solution sets from antivirus, BlackBerry, spam, SMTP relay servers, Exchange licensing, Exchange servers. So we looked at, I think the only other competitor at the time was Microsoft, BPOS, which was just horrible. But the other hand was, do we keep Microsoft and make this full multi-million-dollar investment and stay on top of the capital and expenses and the support for all of that? Even to date, I don't think we've come near the cost of what we would have paid that first year to implement all of this. So we've been on G Suite now for roughly, 9 or 10 years.
Yeah.
So now it's been, it was really the first true cloud application that we actually went live on. So big success for us.
Awesome. So Craig, do you remember the evaluation process? I think what's really important that we try to be really prescriptive about when we're engaging with customers who are interested in evaluating the possibility of making this journey. Do you remember what that evaluation process was like, and kind of what at the end led to this decision over alternatives?
I think when we started looking at our primary concern, frankly, was the sort of interoperability with Word and with the Office stuff, because we do a lot of writing and we do a lot of other stuff that requires things that are built. This company's 100 years old, right? So you can imagine we've got some systems out there that are very much tied to, what's that?
99 years old.
Oh, you're going to correct me. I'm rounding up, man. Anyway, the point is that was our biggest concern, right? It was like, how do we, and by the way, we have a whole bunch of people that have been there a long time who are used to Office and all that. So we went and we looked at it, and we knew that Google had a great product. I mean, it's a great company. The question was whether or not we could do all the things that we wanted to do with it, because we'd been on Exchange and O365 for so long. Like, we've been building into it, and everything's customized and routed and secure, all that stuff. So when we looked at it, that was really the sort of angle that we came at. We knew it was going to help the culture. We didn't have to be sold on that. We didn't have to be sold on cloud. We've already moved into AWS and done all sorts of other cloudish things. It was more about whether or not we could fit this into our company and not like break all the workflows, right? Miss a month, miss a publication. Could we get the editors and the copywriters to get over to it without messing up the whole thing and basically getting a call from Anna Wintour and getting yelled at by her, which nobody wants that. Yeah, so I mean, the evaluation process, there was a technical aspect, sure, right? And we needed to know that we could transfer our data and we could live in that world and we could use it and it would work and we could, route our mail and whatnot. That's all important, but for us, it was more about the culture. It was more about being able to maintain our ability to publish magazines and to reach out to the people that are our sources, reach out to the people that are our content creators, because they all have their own methods of creating content and getting it to us and processing it. I mean, it's a big engine, right? It's not just, a couple pages on a magazine pinned up on a wall. We have to get all that data together. We have to check our sources. We have to be secure about it. We have to be private about who gives us that data, right? All that stuff had to be taken into account. At the end of the day, we felt like not only was it the right cultural shift for us, but it did offer us the security we needed. It did offer us the interoperability that we needed with all of our content providers, our content creators. So, that's a small part of it.
Mr. Kinney, what went into your decision?
Yeah, so we did an evaluation. We had 2 other products that we looked at the time, and it really came down to, I think, we wanted to do more than just solve the email problem. You know, we wanted something that, again, foundational. We wanted something that could really change the way we worked. You know, one of the other issues, talking about digital, is we would have digital sales team and print sales teams, and they were on different floors or perhaps in different buildings, and we had no way of collaborating on the calendar side. And so our sales teams, you know, they would set up a sales call with a client, and the digital component of the folks who were supposed to pitch the digital side wouldn't show up. And it was like, what happened? Well, it wasn't on my calendar. So we had some very, very real operational things that we had to solve. And in looking at all the other products, or the other two products, they weren't going to get us there. And so for us, G Suite at that time, Google Apps for Work or something, it had an interesting name.
It's been rebranded a couple of times.
Yeah, a few times. That was really the only thing that gave us a more complete solution. So that was really why we went with G Suite.
So Bob, McFarlin, you've been on it the longest.
Right.
So you're the most experienced with the platform. You've seen also the most sort of roadmap evolution of the platform. In what ways has how you use G Suite changed and evolved over the last several years, and how have you kept up with all the innovation?
Well, so I'd say the biggest advances for us, and has really been just a tool that we can't live without, is Google Meet and Google Hangouts from the very beginning. We don't have a meeting in our organization now without it being a meet. It doesn't matter if the person is right next door to the other person, same office, same cubicle, they're still using a Google Meet. It's really almost invalidated our entire enterprise voice over IP system. There are some applications that we do use some other facilities for. I'm not going to say there are limitations, but more so that Google Meet isn't there yet. But really and truly, Hangouts and Meet have just evolved so significantly from just that, you know, video camera in front of your PC to the Chrome boxes to Google Meet for large conference rooms. They're in our boardrooms. This is how we conduct business across the organization. That, the calendar collaboration. They've made some pretty good advances with Sheets, although we're still, you know, I would say probably anywhere from 15 to 20% Microsoft Office 365 customer. But again, by and large, we really have adopted this, again, 9-10 years ago. Half the organization they haven't changed over, but, or rather, it's not an argument of, oh, I wish it were Office 365, oh, I wish it were that. This is how we do business. And anybody else comes on right now, all of our newer employees are far more technically savvy than the previous employees when they started. So we see this as a you know, part of our day-to-day operations, our Google Calendar, our meets. We really just can't live without it in our organization. So,
yeah, and it's interesting, I think, the culture shift that happens within the IT organization after this transition, because a lot of the functions and tasks and the roles that had a lot to do with, you know, maintaining this infrastructure, this complex network and antivirus and backup, et cetera, then, you know, you start orienting around, you know, keeping pace with the innovation of the platform, and how do I then enable the new features and new functionality as Google releases them monthly or whatever the cadence is that you choose to be on, right? So, you know, you guys are very, very early in that, you know, conversation, and
we're early. I think that's one of the places where we still internally we're not as fast as we'd like to be. But again, there just seems to be a release every quarter. So there's a lot of vetting that needs to go through some of these changes. But no, we like the fact of trying to be on the cutting edge or sometimes bleeding edge with Google.
yeah.
So
let me go to Bob and back to Craig. So Bob, what are the aspects of the platform that you later saw and adopted and maybe replaced other systems that at first, when you made the decision to go G Suite, wasn't even part of the equation?
Yeah, and I'll echo what you said about the whole Meet concept. When we first started, one of the things our sales teams wanted to do was they wanted to be very dynamic in the field and everything. They wanted to have these video meetings, and quite frankly, Google wasn't there yet. 2012, 2013, it just wasn't there. But what we've seen in the last 2 years, year and a half, is an incredible improvement in how that works, quality, number of people that can be involved in the meetings. And what we've actually done is very strategically, very tactically, we went out and we took a look at our Amex charges, and we took a look at our billing, and we found out what people were using and spending money on for all these video conferencing services, added up the total and said, that's included. So we went back and very strategically told everyone, sorry, you're now using Google Meet. And it has been fantastic. Not a peep. I mean, no one's complaining. Everyone's having very effective meetings. And frankly, it was quite a game changer and cost savings for us. I'd say that was one, and I'd also say that I think Google Drive is a big change for us. Our network administrators and the folks who used to have to deal with permissions, folder permissions, and everything for setting up, access. All of our employees can now do that themselves. They can share content with whomever they want, whenever they want, within the company, of course. But they do it themselves, and so they're no longer dependent upon, some IT guy logging in or figuring out what's going on. They really can control their world.
Yeah. Get you out of that business as an IT organization. So Craig, something about Condé Nast that we talk about a lot, and it's just sort of part of the core strategy. I'd like the audience to understand that, it's not a take it or leave it scenario with G Suite. It is modular in its approach. There's tools for just about everything, but you can still deploy a best of breed approach and still get lots out of the platform. So can you tell about how Condé Nast does that, despite the fact that you're on G Suite, and still do a best of breed approach?
Basically means we don't use a lot of the components. So we use Zoom, we use Slack, we use a variety of what I would call point solutions and best of breed. We went to Zoom probably a year before we went to G Suite, so that was kind of embedded. We've got 150 rooms. We've got a huge Slack deployment. We're on Enterprise Grid. We've got, we've gone to Workday. But the thing that I look for when I'm looking at the technology ecosystem is not just the ability for something to deliver all these products, because frankly, that's not how I like to build my architecture. I kind of like having the modularity, and the thing I look for is the ability to turn things on and off, right? So, for example, I've turned off Hangouts, right? Because I just don't want to confuse my users. It's not that Hangouts is bad, it's just not our solution for it.
That's why I can never get you on Hangouts.
I know, right?
You're not frustrated?
I can view them, but we don't allow people to
You never
start
respond. All right, I'll get on your Slack channel.
We just put out 8x8. They have the same functionality. We've turned off their video, right? I'm just looking to get as much stuff as I can into the cloud at this point. And it gives me the advantage as a buyer, frankly. Like I don't have to, I'm not locked into a monolithic solution like an O365 or all G Suite, and I can put pressure back on my vendors and my partners to give me a better product, right? And I think Hangouts is catching up, right? And there'll be a point where I'll look at what I'm doing and how much I'm paying for it and make a decision about whether or not I want to make the move. And believe me, I talk to Google all the time about it, right? We're on business licenses, not enterprise. There's a price difference, and I can either use that money to buy these point solutions, or I can use them to buy it all from Google. And at some point, we might, right? But it's up to all these other vendors in my ecosystem to fight for that business now. It's sort of we finally have a little bit more power as buyers after we've been forced into subscription models and abandoning what we knew and loved in our big servers and on-prem data centers and all that kind of stuff. And we had to suck it up and pay people monthly and yearly for their products, which was weird. But now we've got this, we had to deal with the fact that, they didn't talk to each other at first. All these SaaS and cloud platforms, APIs came about, now they could. And now we're seeing these great integrations, right? I'm able to pull in my service now, and I'm able to pull in my Salesforce, and I'm able to pull in my 8x8 and different sources and see them within my Chrome browser as part of my G Suite, right? And that's compelling, right? And so as that stuff happens, when they keep fighting for my business and my money, then they're going to give me a better product. And so when they do, I'll turn off one and I'll turn on the other one. Great, works for me.
I appreciate the pressure. Thanks for keeping us on. It's actually it's great to operate in that modality of being flexible. It is one of the tenets of going Google. You know, it's sort of the opposite of lock-in. And it's the same in G Suite as it is in GCP. It's just big commitment to open source, open standards. And from the subscription economics model as a new sort of way to approach enterprise software itself is we do have to earn that business every month, every year. You know, the customer success program that we run for our customers with Google is paramount. Account management is important. Technical account management is important. So it drives the right, the incentives, I think, for us to be better and to become better as a partner of Google, a service partner, but also for Google as a platform. And I actually appreciate that kind of pressure. Something that's paramount, Mr. McFarlin, is, and I remember this, especially sort of the early 2010s, there's all this sort of this concern was bubbling up in regulated industries and other places around security. Security as a strategy, security posture became really important. There was still a debate back then about what's more secure, on-premise or the cloud. Can you talk about sort of how your security posture in its entirety as an organization has been impacted in your strategy with Google?
So, again, moving to G Suite, moving that to that provider really increased our security posture, going from 35 different business units that you have to apply public access into just email alone, and now shifting that to Google. We shut down all those services. We closed all of those holes. The amount of effort trying to secure so many operations at once just for a single service went away. So, and then constant conversations with Google on how they secure the data, how they secure their product. Back in 2010 when we went live, Google Authenticator had just come about, but I don't even think it was available for enterprise at all. So we worked with our partner Sarah here, and we actually implemented two-factor authentication to get into email. So I think we were one of the first customers ever do that with Google.
Yep.
So we added that layer of security pretty quick. It wasn't right at the outset, but it was, I think, within the first year we were able to have two-factor authentication to get into email, which was a significant effort for us. So, yeah.
I mean, I think we've all operated rather large data centers and computer systems and all that in the past, and I can say that.
Oh, Craig was employee number 250 at Yahoo. I just want to highlight that.
I can
been in the game for a long time.
I can say that it's tough at scale to run a secure operation, and at some point, most companies that I've been around and talked to, they just don't do a good job of it. I mean, they're just too big. There's too many people. There's too many systems. I know people all over the valley that operate some of the largest systems out there, and I know how well the Googles and the AWSs and some of the other large companies do it, and I know that I can't do it as good as them. It's as simple as that. Like, I don't have the people, I don't have the money, I don't have the things that I would need to deploy the security that I would want to have. And that was the realization I had years ago when we started looking at when I wasn't at Yahoo and we didn't have massive data. So I'm not talking about them or anybody in particular. But at some point you realize I can't do it as well as them. So that's, to me, it's not really a true argument, right? And like, in comparison to looking at O365, back to your original question, like, we wanted 2FA, we wanted to use something that would secure us. We've got people coming after us all the time for whatever.
Of course.
And the Microsoft solution was sort of restrictive. I can't remember exactly what the problems were, but I know that you had to use a very specific solution. And we wanted to go to something like Okta. I like my modularity. I didn't want anything in one person in particular, right? And I wanted to be able to move it around. So anyway, that's I think looking at the cloud in general and something like G Suite is an easy win from a security standpoint, unless that's your like bread and butter and you're like running a bank or a missile silo or something like that. Yeah. So
even financial services now. Google is much better prepared for a comprehensive security and audit story around those things. But again, you guys were kind of early trailblazers in that. Mr. Kinney, any great security stories?
I wouldn't say great security stories, but I think it definitely gives us the ability.
I think security is great.
Well,
I think it's, like,
and we
super
take
exciting.
it seriously. But Google's allowed us to basically check that box and say, okay, we're good here. Obviously, it's not a set it and forget it. We're always constantly working on things. I'm kind of a nerd. I love looking at the security dashboard that they provide in G Suite and things like that. And we don't have a huge team of security professionals. We've got 2, 3 maybe, and they are constantly working. And just having Google there and knowing the level of data security that is inherent in the products gives them the ability to concentrate on all those other things. So yeah,
Right.
it's very solid.
So in large enterprise, this has become an interesting topic. And again, as I track the evolution of the adoption of G Suite over time, the first big adopters were higher education, then K through 12, then sort of others, right? Now we're seeing healthcare and M&E, sort of broader adoption. For any of your organizations, I know it's true for us, true for anyone. It's like, there's a battle for the best talent. We're all trying to recruit a combination of people with a lot of experience, also a lot of people coming out of school. There's all these graduates who actually have never used a desktop application, who have never used maybe a Windows device. Has that kind of impacted your recruitment velocity, strategy, response? Like, what have you seen as you bring people on board and maybe they're surprised, they're like, wow, I get to use G Suite?
I think it's an expectation, especially in our sales area. The younger, I hate to say it that way, but the younger sales folks that are coming in, they have an expectation of a data set or a tool set that they can use, and G Suite's part of that. They just expect it to be there. And the fact that we're there and we use it well, I feel it's good on us to be able to say that and show that.
I look at it more from we were losing customers on O365, not like subscribers. I mean, like customers from like our employees, right? They were going in their own way. They were going out to the internet to create their own products. They were looking for their own whatevers, Dropboxes, their own tools, productivity things, and they weren't interested in what we were offering them, frankly, right? And we didn't probably do a very good job of it because
They can do that now.
well, now
we're
giving them
a
a compelling product. Well, yeah, they could do it, right? It was easy.
IT was top down before,
have
like
to
these
pay
are the
for it.
tools you have, this is the machine you're going to use. Things have really changed over the last decade.
Yeah, and we've never been a very restrictive environment just because of the nature of the business, and the creatives don't like that, which is fine. It makes it hard sometimes, but we were losing people, and I told my teams, I'm like, you need a better product. It's as simple as that. You need something that's compelling, and that if they're going to succumb to the controls and the lack of ability to administer it themselves, they need something that doesn't suck and that they feel comfortable in. And now, a couple of years into G Suite, I don't have like the sprawl of all these other. I mean, it's out there, of course. I'm not saying it's gone, but it's not what it used to be, right? I think I'm down to like 15 Dropbox accounts I'm tracking at this point, which is off of 1,000 or something like that. Like, it's just, you can see it with the way that people are using the actual tools they're giving them instead of shopping around and going, screw that, I want my own. So, I don't really know how the hiring is going and all that. I don't get to hire a lot of people these days as we're retrenching, but that's what I see as a sort of shift away from having shadow IT and like do-it-yourself products to using the corporate stuff.
I want to pause and show great appreciation for the fact that you actually referred to your employees as customers. I like that. I love that. Bob, what's your experience on just the people, serving the people?
Well, so again, so when we went through this entire effort to move, we ended up having probably training sessions once a quarter for 2 years. Now, we've got some training videos out there for new employees to come on, but they're never used. As a matter of fact, the information that they want is what more can we do with G Suite? What do we not know about? So, yeah, we've spent less on training with folks, new employees coming on board. It's, they've either had Gmail accounts or they've had it in education. They're huge in education. So
78%.
So we're finding that the experience is already there when they're coming on board.
Yeah. Great. And also for you, we were talking about this at dinner last night. It's a very important sort of point of view that there's a lot to Google Cloud today, especially in today's environment. The post Diane Green, she did a lot to move the needle forward. Now TK's here. We've heard sort of that vision. And there's a lot of parts to Google Cloud. And for many years, so G Suite was maybe the first entry point for a lot of organizations, and now it could be cloud as the first entry point, cloud search, it could be Chrome, it could be Maps. Can we talk about how the broader Google relationship has evolved and all the different things that your organization's doing beyond G Suite?
Sure. So currently I can just talk about we're in a proof of concept with Chrome OS right now, Chromebooks coming into the organization, see how that's going to work. But based on the success of G Suite and the impact it's had on the organization, we've actually looked at several other products and formed partnerships with Google. So Google AMP, accelerated mobile pages for our mobile platform. We were the first company to actually implement subscribe with Google for all of our digital websites, which basically, if you go to our site and are not a subscriber, you can use your Google account to pay for that subscription if you want. So that was, I think we're coming up on a year old with that right now. And then just, again, all these successes with Google leads to other things. We just announced a partnership with the Google News Initiative roughly 2 weeks ago called the Compass Experiment, where we are looking at 3 small to mid-sized cities across the U.S. that we feel are underserved by news and information. And we're working with Google on really kind of how do we do this from a ground up. It's not just let's bake them into what we already have, but how do we connect with those communities and serve them the way communities need to be served by news. So very proud of that initiative, and we're looking for more information on that, and very excited.
No, that's fantastic to hear. So it's good to see the platform becoming sort of a broader partnership with the organization behind the platform to be much more than what you started with. I think that's great. Craig, what are you guys doing along those lines? I have nothing, just pass the mic.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I'm trying to think. I would like to answer your question. We use AMP. We have been in talks with them for some things. I think we've been focused on Apple News recently for obvious reasons, but we haven't, we're always looking for opportunities. We do a lot of our ML work on GCP, so we're starting to consume a lot more of the GCP cloud for sort of data projects and things of that nature. We've classically been using AWS. That's where we started. But I think
that's where everybody starts, man.
Yeah, anyway, so that's kind of it right now, I guess. I don't know.
I put you on the spot. That wasn't on the list of questions.
That was good. Yeah, so for us, just an expansion with Google, like Bob, we're doing a pilot project with Google News Initiative on the security side, and we're talking to them about how to get security keys out to all of our journalists across the company, just to really secure their devices as well as Facebook accounts and other things like that. So that's a nice little side project that's going on. Also with GCP, we have begun to migrate some of our core print production projects, systems up into GCP. We've got one very critical system up there now. We're doing a pilot with a second, and then we'll just continue to move those up into GCP. We just see the resiliency of the system being able to handle what we need, and it's looking really good.
That's fantastic. I'd love to give the opportunity for some Q&A, but is there any sort of last tidbits, something you didn't get to talk about? That's
Just
burning.
If you're not using G Suite, why not? I mean, no, it's been, again, it's been a foundational change for us.
Yeah, we've seen it be a tool for M&A, definitely, and especially in your industry, there's been a lot of that. I don't know many publications that are not using it, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I was talking at lunch today. I was talking to someone about sort of the transformation of the IT teams that have had to happen with digital transformation, the changing in the market, the amount of money that we're making. They're getting smaller, right? And we've had to shrink our teams. They've had to, but the amount of services we offer hasn't changed. We still have to do the same stuff, right?
Maybe more.
Yeah, and so we've basically had to make some adapt, right? Where we're looking at other products to help with orchestration, like Better Cloud and things of that nature. That we've got to the point where we've pushed everything into the cloud. I mean, essentially everything into the cloud. We've turned off our WANs. We've totally transformed into letting everybody else kind of run our infrastructure from that perspective. And now the trick is, how do we get these things to work together beyond APIs? I mean, like managing them and getting them to talk to each other and getting them to create a greater product out of the pieces, right? And so, it's really interesting to be able to do what we were doing. If you think about the amount of people and horsepower it took to run Exchange back in the day, it was crazy, right? I mean, you needed teams of dedicated people. And we're down to, I think I've got 2 people that are watching G Suite at this point. I mean, I've got some offshore ops people that do like change and ads and things of that nature, but for the most part, I only have a couple engineers that are managing our entire G Suite infrastructure and all the components and parts and routing and mail security gateways and all that kind of stuff, which, 5 years ago even, it would have been at least double that size. Even had someone doing scripting, anyway,
Yep.
To me, that's the big win when you look back and go, wow, it is really easier, and we are doing more with less. It's sort of that moment we all wanted where software would actually increase your efficiency. Well, I think that kind of happened at some point. I just don't know that we really realized it when it did until you look back and like have these kind of conversations, frankly.
True.
So.
Not much more to add. It's email as a service for us, just as the other 2 echoed here. It runs. We don't have nearly the staff. Again, we go back to 35 plus individuals managing email across the organization, and now we roughly have 2 and some offshore operations looking at dashboards. But apart from that, it's email as a service. It's something that we don't have to worry about.